Give me 3 Vols that have a huge impact. It was National Signing Day last week that have a huge impact for Tennessee. And define huge. Is Ethan Davis catching a touchdown early and then being on the side of a milk carton one? Is an Amber Alert out for Mike Matthews, who played well early, but my phone is going off, beep, beep. Where's Mike Matthews for the remainder of the season? So define impact. I mean, like, to me, Lance Hurd, even though he had issues, he was an impact player in year number 1.
Yes, Lance Hurd was basically a starter who becomes a solid starter, a starter who you don't sit there and say, man, this guy needs to get off the field because his very existence makes this team worse. The way, I'll be fair, I'll call myself out, the way I talked about Andre Carrick in 2023, before he took a step forward in 2024, I was consistently saying, get this guy off the field. He's bad. So a starter who is at the very least reliable.
Okay. And this is the 2026 class. So you pick 3, then I'll pick 3.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to go, I think the most obvious, and I think I don't even think it's a debate, David Sanders Jr. I think is like the most, by the way, you were on the show Friday, Dave. I don't know if you saw it, but I've heard some reports that David Sanders was the highest paid member of the 2025 recruiting class of anybody.
I actually was told that, yes.
Yeah. So
around 700 G's.
Yeah, so Tennessee opened the checkbook for him. And so David Sanders is going to immediately start it. And there are very few, and you tell me if I'm right on this. Yes, I get you have to learn offensive line and a system. Aren't there sometimes, though, like maybe 2 per recruiting class offensive linemen that you can just plug in and they can start in any system immediately because they're that good?
Yeah. I was talking to Philip Fulmer about this the other day, and I think he said the 2 were maybe Bill Duff and Michael Munoz. I think those are the only 2 he said that he knew that were truly ready as freshmen. But we're going to do a piece on him a little bit later. So who else?
All right, so that's my one.
Wait, you got
I got 2 more. I'm sticking with offensive linemen. I think Sam Pendleton is going to take one of the interior offensive line spots. Wendell Moe is going to provide the depth, but Sam Pendleton, I think, is going to be a starter, the transfer from Notre Dame.
Agreed.
So those are my 2.
Let me address a couple of guys. Star Thomas is going to be part of the rotation unless he shows up and just can't play. So I don't know that counts as a starter. Amari Jefferson is still overcoming the hip. I think that he's going to be fine. Wendell Moe Jr. would be a lesser rated than Pendleton. So those are the transfers, whereas Tennessee had to rely on like 18,000 transfers a couple of years ago. They're relying on 4 now. So now you're going to have to get a little bit tougher. I don't know. You could go transfers if you want, but who else you got?
Okay, so this is going to be a little bit tricky, but I think I'm going to land. So I've already gotten 2 linemen. I think I'm going to go crazy, Dave, and I'm going to go Trey Petit, the cornerback out of Wisconsin, the 4-star.
Thanks for the drama that you just took my guy. Because,
I did?
Yes. Gerard McCoy was out. So here are do you have another one you would like to throw out?
Nope, those are my 3. David Sanders, Sam Pendleton, and Trey Petit.
Okay. It is, is it Petit or Petit? Because I went to high school with a buddy who, you talk about a guy who could drink some bourbon. His name was Petit.
I guess he wasn't petite then if he was drinking that bourbon like that.
Well, he was early, not the last time I saw him. All right, so David Sanders is got to be on the list. So put David Sanders on the list. And then you have Pendleton on the list. Well, of course you should. I mean, for goodness sake, he is a guy that is absolutely going to play for Tennessee. I'm going to, if you don't mind, veto Petit. And here's why. Because I think Tennessee has some players in the secondary, and I think the plan will be to get McCoy ready by the beginning of October, or at least that Georgia game, which is late September. So I'm going to hold back on Poteet, even though I see what you're on to with Jermon McCoy. I think they're going to find another guy in the interim that can be that sort of guy that fills the void. No offense to Ollie Lane, but a little bit better than Ollie Lane when he played at Florida. Okay, here's the other one I'm going with. GMAC.
Whoa, Dave is trying to start stuff.
I'm not trying to start anything. Here's what I'm telling you. You asked for a starter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it safe to say that Merklinger's not the guy because he couldn't pass Gaston Moore? Is that fair?
Fair.
Okay. Is it fair to say that Gaston Moore is not the guy because we've all seen him play?
Yes.
Is it
and
safe
Gaston
to
Moore
say?
transferred too, so.
What's that?
Gaston Moore transferred too.
Right. Is it safe to say that with the way that Nico runs the football, he could be knocked out for a game? Is it also reasonable to say that he didn't do anything? He played better the last half of the year. That he didn't do anything that makes me think, if I may steal a quote, that he was created in a lab to run the Josh Heupel system. What if George McIntyre is and was? He's here now. He's on campus. Does he get a look? Now, maybe that's a reach, Caleb, but I didn't see enough out of Nico Iamaleava last year to completely 110% believe that he locks on to the job if somebody else comes and can compete.
Okay. Wow. So what you're saying is Nico's Jalen Hurts and Mac is Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or Nico is Kelly Bryant and Mac is Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, pretty much. That Nico is a placeholder and that it could be Mac. Here's why.
So Nico's what we thought Joe Milton was to Nico.
Yes. And I think that, and I want to go so far as to say that something that's always rubbed me the wrong way, when George McIntyre is recruiting like crazy, absolutely recruiting like crazy, and Nico was busy playing volleyball, that always rubbed me the wrong way. Just going to be real honest with you. That always troubled me.
Let me ask you this. Because one of the reasons Heupel had to start Joe Milton, and you and I have talked about this, Hendon Hooker galvanized the troops. Joe Milton did it a little differently, but the players wanted to play hard for Joe Milton, didn't they? They liked him a lot.
Yes. It was probably his saving grace.
Yes. I think it might. Do you think there's a chance the players would want to play harder for George McIntyre than Nico because of George McIntyre's leadership and recruiting and the way he seems to just be a team guy?
Yes, and the fact that he doesn't have more money than Elon Musk.
That is true. That's a very good point. No, you're right.
I mean, let's be honest. Ultimately, that is a factor. We talked about it with everybody, how that's – I understand that people look at the quarterback and think maybe you should make 10 times more than me. I make 100,000, you make $1 million. But should you really make 40 times more than me?
No, not at all. I go back, this is one of the most, I've always said this is one of the most underrated things about football, which is that when players will step up their game just a little bit for a quarterback they like more, and they may even do it subconsciously. I mean, you cover the 2005 debacle Tennessee. Eric Ainge was the better quarterback, but it seemed like the players played harder for Rick Clausen because they just liked Rick a lot more as a quarterback.
Well, yeah, and they also thought that he was a guy who could just put it in good places, maybe not as talented. Now, you and I both know that defenses would have walked up because he didn't have the arm strength.
And they kind of did.
Yeah, they exactly did. They exactly did.